Chapter 1, Town. Song got out of the car with her luggage and walked a long way to take a deep breath of fresh air. The smell of gasoline in the car made her chest feel a little relaxed and softened down slightly. She looked up at the scenery that had been invested for 5 years, feeling familiar and strange. This is King Town, a town under development, and it is also where she grew up. 5 years ago, her parents died in a car accident. She was adopted and left here by relatives to finish college in another place. It has been 5 years since she is now 22 years old. She attended a relatively famous university with excellent grades. Her tutor suggested that she study for postgraduate study, and her relatives who adopted her also supported her to continue her studies. But she refused their kindness with a smile and whole intentionally applied to return to this small town full of her childhood memories, the only primary school in the town to teach. She doesn't want to burden her relatives anymore. For 5 years, she missed this place. As she walked to the old house in her memory, she passed a bridge. The bridge was covered with lime white, and some parts of the railing were painted with red paint. It seems that the paint on the stone bridge has been washed away by the wind and rain, and will repaint every 2 years. Song walked on the bridge and held the railing with both hands, regardless of whether her hands were stained with white lime. She looked at the sparkling river below, and slowly raised a smile at the corners of her mouth. "I'm back." After saying softly, she looked at the calm river again, took her luggage and left there. Not long after the person on the bridge left, a circle of ripples suddenly broke up under the willow trees near the shore. Chapter 2, Original. The old house has been uncombed for a long time. The lock of the iron door is rusty, and the key has been turned in it for a long time before opening the door. This house is a 2-story building with white tiles on it. Now it has turned slightly yellow, with a small yard and a shelf of grapevines. Song's eyes are a little moist. Everywhere here have her good memories. Now, she is the only one left. She feels peace of mind that she can't feel anywhere else. In the next few days, she was busy cleaning the house, buying some daily necessities, and going to report to the town's primary school, which used to be her alma mater. She is about to go to work. She is a little nervous. The day before going to work, Song had just finished her dinner and walked to the river not far away. This place has been developed recently. You can see many houses on other side of the bridge. On this side, only a few houses, some weeds and wild willow trees. There are also sporadic 2 or 3 lights turned on at night. It's quiet. Song still remembers that when she was a child, she liked to take this road the most when she came home from school. She always folded a few wickers in her hand or made a trap on her head. Sitting on a stone on the shore and listening to the long-lost frog song and the sound of some other bugs, Song felt that her heart was gradually calming down, which could not be heard in the city. Unexpectedly, Song remembered what happened when she was a child. At that time, she was 7 years old. She heard adults emphasize countless times that she should not swim in the river, but she thought about it even more. One day, she came here alone. She still remembers the suffocation of drowning at that time. The water poured into her nose and ears. She opened her mouth to call for help but choked into the river. She struggled in vain to grab the drooping willow tree, but she was getting farther and farther away from the shore. Her hands that slapped the water gradually became weak, and her whole body slowly sank into the water. That was the first time. Realizing that death turned out to be so close to her. The tingling eyes could see the waves reflected on the water slightly, which made people dizzy. The lungs were about to explode. Everything was extremely painful. She didn't even have time to regret secretly going to the river without listening to her parents. The smooth touch like water grass wrapped around her back, and some dark green silk wrapped around her hair and brushed her face. She felt that she was pushed up by someone. In a trance, there were a pair of long black narrow eyes against her. Then she became unconscious. She woke up in the hospital, beside the bed with a tearful mother and frowning father. For a long time after that, she was not allowed to approach the river. Chapter 3, Memories. Since then, little Song has firmly believed that there is a water demon in the river, but every time she says so, she will be scolded by her mother. Her grandmother also asked her mother to take her to the temple for fear that she will be entangled in bad things. Song was very unconvinced. She told the truth but no one believed it. To convince her mother, she often ran to the river to guard, but she did not dare to go into the water again. She hopes to see the water demon that saved her. That one is not water grass. It must be a water demon. The story told by the dead grandfather also tells that there is a water demon. With such persistence, Ꭲ⎪ named the creature Water Demon. It was almost a year after Ꭲ⎪ drowned. She was almost frustrated with what she said and had no hope of seeing the Water Demon again. However, the behavior of running to the river over a year has become a habit. Lying on the grass near the shore, a breeze blows from time to time in the shade of willow trees. On summer afternoons accompanied by cicadas, it is easy for people to close their eyes and sink into sleep. As soon as she slept until sunset. Ꭲ⎪ opened her eyes confusedly and saw the golden red sunset reflected on the river and the Water Demon not far from her. This time, she saw clearly that the long green hair was close to ink, and the black ones had much narrower eyes than ordinary people. It soaked in water from below the eyes, but Ꭲ⎪ didn't see it. Suddenly, she was sleepless. Ꭲ⎪'s little body jumped up and exclaimed, "Water Demon." Then she ran near it. She only saw the swaying willow branches in a circle of water waves. Ꭲ⎪ grew up slowly and knew that others could not believe in a water demon, so she buried it in her heart and stopped talking to others. There may be some other reasons, but Ꭲ⎪ doesn't want to think deeply. She often took a nap there, restrained her sleep, closed her eyes and pretended to be asleep, and then secretly opened her eyes to see the position under the willow tree on the shore. Sometimes, she can see the Water Demon, who looks at her silently. In her eyes, he will look at her for a few seconds and sink into the water. Every time she sees the Water Demon, Ꭲ⎪ will be happy all day. When she can't take a nap there in winter, Ꭲ⎪ will also sit there for a while, read a book or do something else. She was also foolishly afraid that the Water Demon would not come out. In a cold winter, she went to the river bank to smash ice. Chapter 4, Decade. When did the Water Demon no longer appear? It was probably the summer when she was 12 years old. Her cousin came back from the seaside and brought her a small bag of shells. She couldn't put it down and held the shells. The first thing Ꭲ⎪ thought of was the Water Demon, which hasn't been known for that long. Should she give him a gift? In this way, she can talk to him. It was the beginning of love. 12-year-old Ꭲ⎪ made the shell bracelet with longing, found the most beautiful and complete shell, and skewered them with knotted colored silk thread over and over again, and the smile at the corners of her mouth had never disappeared. At that time, Ꭲ⎪ was often there to wait for the Water Demon to appear. From noon until the sun completely set, the Water Demon did not appear. She pulled on the most beautiful white skirt she deliberately changed. Ꭲ⎪ stood up and stamped her numb feet, and squatted down to stare at the water. Ꭲ⎪ was a very stubborn person. Finally, after the last glimmer of light was swallowed up, the calm water slowly came out, and there was no black light in those eyes. The first time she looked at him so closely, Ꭲ⎪ was so nervous that she could hardly speak. She took out the shell bracelet and held it tightly. "I gave you a bracelet, and I made it myself. Can I put it on for you?" Ꭲ⎪ didn't know how careful and eager she was to say this. After a long silence, the Water Demon stretched out from the water and put a hand on the grass on the shore. Sharp and long cyan nails and slightly blue skin. Ꭲ⎪ held her breath and approached carefully. She gently pulled the hand, cold and smooth touch. Did this hand push her up from such a painful place? Put on the simple shell bracelet, which looked so unmatched with that hand, but Ꭲ⎪'s heart surged with infinite satisfaction. Her heart was so excited that it wanted to jump out of her chest. She happily wanted to sing loudly, wanted to jump and shout, wanted to hug him. However, after that day, no matter how much Ꭲ⎪ waited, she never saw the Water Demon again. She waited for 5 years. She became a 17-year-old girl and gradually knew what it meant, but it only made her more painful, and no matter how much she looked forward to meeting him, she couldn't achieve it. Then came the car accident that caused her to become alone, and after that, she left this place. Now she is 22 years old. She has not seen the Water Demon for 10 years. Why is he still clearly in memory as if she can touch it as soon as she reaches out? She had been stuck in the memory for too long, and when she came to her senses, the stars were already all over the sky. Ꭲ⎪ stood up with a smile and walked home. She wanted to wait, at least to let her see him again. Chapter 5, Disappearance. Ꭲ⎪ became a primary school teacher with 50 students in the class. She is busy every day, but she is also very fulfilling. Listening to the children calling her teacher, she felt soft. After preparing for class, what she usually does was to take a walk by the river. She sat at the place when she was a child and looked at the river. At noon that day, the sun was scorching the earth. Ꭲ⎪ passed by the river bank and heard someone calling for help. She saw at a glance that the person who fluttered in the water was a boy in her class. He was usually naughty, but he respected her very much. Ꭲ⋅Song was annoyed that she forgot to bring her mobile phone. As he shouted for help, she saw that the child in the water was about to sink. She quickly picked up a long stick and poked it over. "Grab the stick, teacher will pull you up." Ꭲ⋅Song shouted nervously and shouted for help, but at this time, no one passed by this place at all. The child in the water couldn't hold the stick. She gritted her teeth and leaned forward, hoping to get closer to the child. Plash. Ꭲ⋅Song also fell as soon as she slipped, because she didn't learn to swim when she was a child. Now she can only kick her feet randomly. Finally, she pulled the child who was in a coma and pushed him hard to the shore. Ꭲ⋅Song, who was out of her strength, sank. Familiar touch, a pair of cold and soft hands put around her waist. At this moment, she couldn't breathe and was very uncomfortable. Ꭲ⋅Song couldn't help smiling with a little complacent smile. With the last little effort, Ꭲ⋅Song wanted to hold his hand, but she touched the thing on his wrist. "Teacher, I'm sorry, I won't go to the river again, teacher." The child cried with a runny nose and tears and looked at her. After she repeatedly promised that she would not hate him, he was taken away by his parents. The couple thanked her very much before leaving. "We will discipline this boy well in the future. Fortunately, the river will be filled soon, and we should rest assured in the future these children won't run to this place to play again." "Is the river going to be filled?" A month later, the quiet river bank became noisy, and excavators and trucks came in forth. "It will be filled in as a building because the town has begun to develop in recent years." The river bank at night was quiet. Ꭲ⋅Song walked along the place where a lot of water was being pulled out and was muddy. Her feet were deep and shallow, her trousers were covered with mud, and so were her shoes, which became heavy that she couldn't lift her feet. What should she do if the river filled? "Hey, come out. Are you going to get out of here?" Ꭲ⋅Song shouted as she walked. She would rather die than never see him again. "Can you come out for a moment?" Ꭲ⋅Song's voice became hoarse but still didn't get any response. The river was filled little by little, and the willow trees were also eradicated. Except in memory, nothing can be traced. Chapter 6, Leaving. In this Kingxi town, Ꭲ⋅Song has been a primary school teacher for 3 years. Ꭲ⋅Song, 25, is old enough to get married in the eyes of her relatives, so they often call and urge her to go back to the city to get on a blind date. In the face of their kindness, Ꭲ⋅Song could only avoid it with a smile again and again. If she couldn't avoid it, she just had to confuse them with her work. "Get married?" Ꭲ⋅Song smiled bitterly and applied for a transfer. A few days ago, an announcement was issued to transfer one teacher to another town. That town is more remote than this one. Because it is not close to the national highway, it is not developing like this town. The teachers here are all from this town. Even if not in this town, they are married here, so no one is willing to transfer there, let alone more remote than here. Ꭲ⋅Song's application was quickly approved. She packed her luggage and locked the door of her house. At the sight of the school teachers and a group of students, she got in the car and left there. On the way, she passed through the filled river, where dozens of high-rise buildings had been built, and large-scale floor promotion advertisements hung there were particularly conspicuous. The town where Ꭲ⋅Song went to is called Ꭲ⋅Nǒ town, which is smaller and has a relatively small population than Kingxi town where she was born. Most young people went to work in the big cities, so the town only has the elderly and children, so it looks particularly peaceful. She came here in a car for more than 5 hours. Along the way, she could see some old man playing chess in front of their house, some old women chatting with a vegetable basket on the road, and the children running around the river. There is only one primary school in this town, and the teachers of the school have allocated housing. The house Ꭲ⋅Song was assigned to was on the first floor, just facing a river. Ꭲ⋅Song, who was going to find a house to rent by herself, looked at the river for a long time, and finally lived in the allocated house. Open the window at night, the moon shining on the river, and the river blows with a faint night breeze. Ꭲ⋅Song fell in love with this place at once. Having 3 years of teaching experience, Ꭲ⋅Song soon became familiar with this primary school. She led 2 classes with a total of more than 70 children. Knowing that she had gone quietly to teach further, the relatives who adopted her called. She said there was nothing she could do, so she could only go. Chapter 7, Return. After staying in Ꭲ⋅Nǒ town for 3 months, Ꭲ⋅Song deeply fell in love with the simple folk customs here and even felt that it was good to live here all her life. Because the town is relatively small, almost everyone knows each other. Often, the parents of some students, that is, those enthusiastic old people, will come to send her something, or a few green vegetables grown in their own homes, or a small bag of pears, plums, etc. So she couldn't even refuse. Ꭲ⎋ can only repay them by doing her best while expressing gratitude. On this day, Ꭲ⎋, who was marking her students' homework, heard a knock on the window. This is not the first time. Ꭲ⎋ stood up and opened the window as usual. Sure enough, several students in her class stood outside the window, stood on tiptoe to look inside. These children are very sensible and often give her some small gifts. They sent the pot of wildflowers to her room. The children don't know if it was worth it or not, but their hearts moved Ꭲ⎋ very much. She took good care of it. Teacher, here for you. We caught it by the river. The taller boy in the middle held a palm-sized fish in his hand. Teacher, hold it. The water is leaking. The girl next to her exclaimed, and the excited look made Ꭲ⎋ laugh. Little fish, the river is too dangerous. Don't go there next time, okay? Yes. The children looked at her and ran away embarrassedly. Close the window. Ꭲ⎋ saw the fish in her hand, ran to the kitchen and put him in a large jar of rainwater. Before Ꭲ⎋ began to worry about what she should do with the little fish, she saw that the green fish in contact with the water turned into messy dark green hair, pale blue skin, long narrow eyes, cyan lips, and a much damaged shell bracelet on his hand with long nails. Her students gave her the best gift. Looking at the deep black eyes, Ꭲ⎋ suddenly smiled loudly. I'll buy a house by the river and make a swimming pool for you. Can I be with you in the future? How can you run away every time? Chapter 8, Water Demon. The water demon is a selfish creature. They will drag their favorite creature into the water, pester them tightly, and watch them struggle in the water. But there was a water demon who pushed the drowning person in front of him ashore. He appeared in front of human beings again and again. He accepted a gift from the human. He waited for the human for many years in the polluted river that was no longer suitable for living. He fell in love with the human. Finally, he was kept in captivity by that human being. She untied the bracelet herself and smiled warmly. I'll make you a new one, okay? Chapter 9, Extra. On many unmanageable nights, he will sneak out of the water, stick one hand out of the water to dry, and his dark eyes stare at the loose string of shell chains on his wrist. It has been so long since he saw her. He hid in the grass by the river and looked at the passers-by for a long time, trying to find her figure. The bracelet in his hand faded because of the passage of time. When it broke, he held the scattered bracelet at a loss and finally faced the empty river bank for a long time. He struggled to resew the shells with those cold blue and white hands. Now, he lay in the bathtub and let her rub a bubble on his head with a smile. End of the story.